Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be beginning here shortly. As a reminder, this webcast is being recorded. The recorded video will be published on the DFPI's YouTube channel, as well as the DFPI Debt Collection Advisory Committee's public page. Your microphone has been muted and video disabled and will remain so for the duration of this webinar. If you have questions or comments, you can submit them via the chat or QA function in Zoom. During the public comment period, the microphones can be unmuted for comments. And we'll get started here in just a few moments. And we're going to get started in just one moment. All right, and to begin this meeting, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Commissioner Hewlett. Commissioner?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am really honored to be here with you today. And I really want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work that you've all done to help the department stand up our new licensing program. I want to convey my deep appreciation for the progress you've made so far with approving new applications. I clearly understand the work that this advisory committee is charged with and the importance and impact of your feedback. We are the model for the nation. Thank you, and your efforts and all of your insights have been invaluable. I also want to take some time to thank Suzanne Martindale and Melinda Lee for doing a wonderful job in spearheading this group. As this is the start of a new year with the advisory committee, it is also time we must say goodbye to our outgoing members who have come to the end of their 2-year term of service. And the committee members that will be leaving are Elizabeth Gonzalez, Prasad Krishnamurthy, Mark Naiman, Ohad Samit, Tamar Udunfran. Thank you for your outstanding service. Your dedication to being as transparent as possible has been invaluable to supporting the process of this committee and contributing to the important work of this department. I'm also hoping that this is merely just a ceremonial goodbye, as the department wishes to continue its engagement and our partnership with you and your affiliated organizations far into the future. As we begin this new year, we listened to your input and focused our efforts on expanding the diversity of the committee to better represent the broad spectrum of debt collection services in the marketplace. Following in this spirit, we are welcoming 5 new members of the Debt Collection Advisory Committee, and they will begin their 2-year term starting what was April 29th, but officially kind of like ticking it off today. And they are Callie Miller, from Opportune SBC Mexico, Desiree Neuenarth, East Bay Community Law Center, Angela Reed Becker, Equably Incorporated, Robert Tavelli Company Incorporated, Sean Welch, P&B Capital Group LLC. And we also have 2 returning members staying on the committee, Scott Hyman, Siverson Werson, Cindy Yucklin, States Recovery Systems Incorporated. Thank you for offering your service and supporting the mission of this committee. And thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to participate in this meeting today to learn more about your thoughts, concerns, and how we can actually work together in the coming year. I'd like to turn it back to Suzanne and Melinda to continue with today's agenda.
Thank you. We do have a couple other special guests today, some of our new executive committee with DFPI, and I would like to give them a quick moment to introduce themselves and to explain their role in our department. And maybe Purvi, if we could start with you and then pass it to Greg.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Purvi Patel, and I am the Deputy Commissioner for Credit Unions here. I just started a few weeks ago, and it's been a very exciting few weeks here at the department. We have 114 state-chartered credit unions that our department oversees, and looking forward to working with all of them. And I think the debt collection work is just as relevant to credit unions as it is to our banking clients, licensees. So looking forward to working with all of you, and thanks for having me today.
Great. I guess that's my cue to go next. Good morning, all. My name is Greg Young, and I am the new Senior Deputy Commissioner here at DFPI, and I oversee our corporation and financial institutions program, which includes the regulation and licensing of all state chartered banks, credit unions, payday lenders, money transmitters, mortgage, and escrow companies. And I have been in this role a month. So excuse me for the lack of hair and makeup, because if you've been reading the papers, my team and I have been very, very busy, and we're up into the early morning hours today. But I am excited to be a part of the DFPI family and look forward to working with many of you. And some of you I recognize from the RISE CRC event that Purvi and I attended last week in Oakland. So look forward to working and partnering with many of you. I want to say in advance, excuse me, I may have to jump off in the next few minutes due to previous meetings, but I will be on as long as I can. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. And I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. I was busy introducing other people. So hello, I am Melinda Lee. I am the Deputy Commissioner in charge of the debt collection program. So I'm a little more boots on the ground type. And I would also like to give a chance for Suzanne. If you could also introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the meeting.
Melinda, good morning, everyone. So for those of you who have not met me previously, my name is Suzanne Martindale. I'm the Senior Deputy Commissioner over our Consumer Financial Protection Division. It's a newer division that houses our newer supervisory programs here at the department, including the debt collection program. So I work very closely with Melinda as we continue our build out of the Debt Collection Licensing Act and move forward with licensing debt collectors here in the state of California. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Melinda.
And we also have Colleen Monahan on as well.
Yes, our Colleen, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Colleen
Oh, there you
Monahan. I am the acting Deputy Commissioner of the Legal Division.
Well,
And we-
hello, everyone. So today, the way our agenda works out, I'll do a short program update on how we're doing. You can, during the webinar, you can put questions in the Q&A. The chat is open, but as far as if you really want to get an answer back to your question, if you put it in the Q&A, that also allows us to answer you after the webinar. So if we don't get to everyone, the Q&A function allows us to respond back afterwards. So I'll start with an update, then we'll turn it over to the legal team to do a quick update on where our reg package is now. And then we will allow all of the committee members to introduce themselves and to express their concerns or comments or whatever they would like to talk about today. Then we have the last 10 minutes set aside for public comment. So I'll go ahead and get started just on the program update so that we can move into the committee section of this as soon as possible. So just to let everyone know, we are currently at 90% staffed. That includes our liaison, which is Ryan Rodriguez, who is the liaison for this committee. So any of the committee members, I just want to keep saying his name so that you remember it and you know where to go to if you have questions or technical issues or you need to get a hold of someone. Ryan is there to help you. He was the gentleman speaking at the beginning of the meeting, and he'll speak at the end of the meeting. We do continue to have challenges with the background checks. So we started doing the conditional approvals in January 1st. So as of last week, we had about 400 applications already conditionally approved. We still have about 900 to work through, but based on that 100 plus a month, that means we should be through our backlog very early next year, which is about what we had expected with before the delay. So we're doing our best to stay on track as far as getting all the applications processed as quickly as possible. To allow consumers to verify who has applied and who is allowed to do business. All of the applicants' names are on our website. But just a reminder, this is only for applicants because we normally do not publicize that information. So once they're approved, then you can find them on the consumer access for NMLS because all of our applications are going through the NMLS system. So I just want to remind people it's only the applicants on our website, the actual licensees now that we're licensing is through the consumer access through NMLS. We are planning on doing our first annual report as of 12/31/2023. That is due in, will be due then in March of 2024. So until then, you guys are off the hook. We'll make announcements, and the content is basically, it's based off of the law, but we will publicize what the report will look like beforehand, and we will send out reminders before the end of the year so that you're prepared to collect that data. Our first assessment will be for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. So that means it's going to be due fourth quarter 2024. So that's how that works. So we're still ways out on our actual assessment. We will begin our first examinations at the end of this year. However, we're continuing to focus the majority of our workforce on licensing. So until we get through that backlog, so the examination side of our program will not get into full swing until 2024. And so we'll provide more details on the examination and kind of how that works as far as notifying licensees and that on what you could expect. We'll provide that at further meetings or later meetings this year, but just kind of give you a heads up where we are on that process, so no one can expect to be notified in the next couple months, because yeah, we're still a little slow on that end because we have to get people licensed first. The other thing I just want to highlight is we now have a voicemail number, and I think Ryan's going to put that in the chat at some point. This is for our licensees to contact us. It currently only is a voicemail. We will have a direct phone line. Our department's working on doing some upgrades so that we, can accommodate that. So that will also come in the future. However, the number we're giving you would be the same number. And does anyone have any questions on that information before I move on to Emily? I'm trying to look at all these boxes that I have. I do not see any questions. Okay, so Emily, would you like to do a quick update on our regulation status?
Yes, thanks, Melinda. I'm Emily Gallagher, Senior Attorney in Legal, and I'm just going to give you a brief update. We intend to release the next pre-filing draft of the regulations regarding scope, records retention, and annual reports very soon. It's headed for its final stage of review, so keep an eye out at internal review. I'll also just say we intend to hold another advisory committee meeting during the comment period for that draft so that we can hear from the committee directly. So if you're not already signed up to receive notifications of regulations, please let Ryan know and he'll be able to help you get signed up for that. That's all I've got, Melinda.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. So now we can move on to meeting our committee members. If we could maybe just go through and introduce everyone, and then we'll go back around again and let you add additional comments, but let's find out who everyone is. So if we could just get a brief on who you're working for and kind of what your responsibility is, and your a little bit about your company or entity that you work for. And I am going to start off with our returning members, particularly because Cindy, you're smack dab in the middle of my screen. So if we could have you start off.
Sure, happy to go first. Thanks, Melinda. My name is Cindy Auckland. I am a second generation collection agency owner here in Sacramento. I'm happy to be serving with the committee again. And let's see, as far as my collection agency, we're nationally licensed. In my experience in serving with the California Association of Collectors, I also worked for 2 years on the debt collection licensing bill as it was moving, through the process. Certainly happy to help in any capacity that we can with further implementation as we start getting into, the rulemaking process and all the next steps. So really quickly, happy to see everybody, and thanks again.
Thank you, Cindy. And Scott, can I pass it to you now?
Yes, Melinda. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name's Scott Hyman. I'm a partner with the Severson and Worston law firm. We're a San Francisco-based law firm, but I'm in the Orange County office. Excuse me, my voice is a little off today. I've been representing financial institutions, banks, and some debt collection agencies for some 30 years. I have been the co-author for over 15 years of the CEB book on the fair debt collection laws and the TCPA. My side hustle is cybersecurity and privacy as well. I had the privilege of serving on the previous 2-year term with the DFPI with this advisory committee, and look forward to working with the committee and with the DFPI in the next 2-year term, and as the regulations come out, and a privilege to see everybody here today. Thank you.
Desiree?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Desiree Wynn-Orth. I'm the director of the consumer practice at East Bay Community Law Center. We are a direct service provider in Alameda County and rural areas of the Central Valley. Our organization is focused on assisting women of color because women of color tend to uplift the entire community so that we know our help can get a little bit further. Our unit focuses on all of the consumer issues that our clients see, which is a pretty wide range of issues in addition to just debt collection. We are also a clinic of Berkeley Law School where we work with law students and train them to be advocates, as well as education for our community. My side passion is also small business owners and foundations. I am really looking forward to working with everyone on the committee and collaborating with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Callie?
Hello, everybody. My name is Clothilde Foxmiller. I am a director of collections and servicing for Opportune. And Opportune is a financial institution aimed at giving loans that are non-credit based, but at traditional interest rates. I have been in collections my entire career. I started as a tax collector fresh out of college. I worked my way through college as a tax collector and an auditor for the state. And I then went into mortgage regulation. And now I work in financial services institution. Very happy to be here.
You're
on
muted,
mute.
Melinda.
Robert?
Hello, hi, thank you, and I appreciate being able to be here as well. Cindy and I obviously know each other from our industry associations. I served 10 years on the state board for California Association of Collectors and served 2 terms as their president. Went through the board, but also as ledge chair. And Cindy and I have shared a lot of the same committees and have a good understanding of consumer protection, as well as understanding that basically if most people are doing it right, we want to support that. But I'd rather throw the ones that are doing it wrong under the bus so that they don't affect my industry. My background goes way back to 1978 when I got into the industry, and it started out, I worked for 2 other collection agencies, and then I did process serving, repossession, stolen equipment, loss prevention for a major rental chain. I actually was I was the first process server to have a gun pointed or stuck to his head while I was held there for 45 minutes by a person who had lost it. I talked my way out of it. I was very calm, and then eventually fell apart later. But seeing both sides of the coin and what the stress that people are under that have debts are under is part of the program. Cindy and I are both involved with legislation over the years to protect consumers. There's the identity theft protocol within California and nationally that we were both involved with. I helped write that legislation with Senator Wiggins, and it really had to do with protecting consumers that were turned over to collections because they were victims of identity theft and working out some protocols. So my goal in working with this organization is to understand better its role and really support the efforts going forward so that everybody can work in harmony, because most people that owe debts want to get them paid. And I don't like auto dialers because it takes the personality out of it. We found that by working with people, finding out what their problems are, it's a lot easier to solve them. And so everybody people that are owed money get paid. And people that owe money are able to either resolve it or move on from it one way or another. And so I'm looking forward with this group. So.
Thank you. Robert?
Hello, this is, hi, thank you, and I appreciate being able to be here as well. Cindy and I are both involved with legislation over the years to protect consumers. There's the identity theft protocol within California and nationally that we were both involved with. I helped write that legislation with Senator Wiggins, and it really had to do with protecting consumers that were turned over to collections because they were victims of identity theft and working out some protocols. So my goal in working with this organization is to understand better its role and really support the efforts going forward so that everybody can work in harmony, because people, most people that owe debts want to get them paid. And I don't like, personally, I don't like auto dialers because it takes the personality out of it. We found that by working with people, finding out what their problems are, it's a lot easier to solve them. And so everybody, people that are owed money get paid. And people that owe money are able to either resolve it or move on from it one way or another
Thank you. Angela?
Hello, I'm Angela Becker. I work for Equally Inc. And what Equally does is a newer company. We optimize collections for lenders and debt buyers and also collection agencies and law firms, and helping to understand the different accounts and the variances that they have within their portfolio. And so they can maximize collections. We offer a different variety of platforms. Either way, it may be handling media, handling type of compliance related items, and just a lot of variety of services here at Equably. At Equably, I manage the compliance department with the external and internal audits, any type of risk assessment, and overseeing any type of complaints and disputes that come across our playing field. In the different positions I've held in operations and compliance over the years, working with debt buyers, working for a debt buyer, working for collection agencies and different law firms, and really have a good understanding of the operational and compliance aspects within the collection industry. I'm really looking forward to having my background assist this panel.
Thank you. And Sean?
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the CCO and managing member of P&B Capital Group. We're a third-party collection agency in Western New York. Been doing this for about 20 years. And we focus on retail and credit card. We have 45 employees. I'd like to thank the DFPI for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with the committee.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and happy to have all of you here. And as everyone could hear, we have a very diverse group this time, representing various aspects of the debt collection industry. We also have people from different states, because that is our licensee base. We anticipate more than half of our licensees will actually be outside of California, but just doing business here. So we wanted to make sure we had that representation also. So now we can turn over the meeting to our committee. If someone would like to volunteer, or if someone wants to start, if you want to just raise your hand and I can call on you, or we could just go in the same order that I just did. Any volunteer, or Cindy, you're up.
I know. So by default, I guess I'll go first. Maybe just kind of give some of the folks on, if you've been following kind of some of our previous meetings, obviously we, at the inception of working with the committee there, I would love to see us be able to work in person in Sacramento. I think that's one of my key objectives, I think, for this cycle, is to find a way to be able to come to Sacramento if that's our desired place, and meet in person. Picking up on some of the items that I quickly jotted down, audits and the assessments, and then the most recent rulemaking that's going to be coming out. We had done some work last year over the past 2 years. In working through the annual report and the specifics that were, being asked of the licensees, and trying to drill down, the why are we looking for these things, try and give guidance and support, behind the purpose, because we want to make sure that it's something that's defined by licensees, because everybody's business is a little bit, different in the way that debt buyers operate versus third-party collection agencies, even though we're all licensees. So helping and guiding the department to finalize the annual report, I think, is one of my key issues that I'd like to work on. And then as we get closer into, towards the end of this year, the audit process, what does that look like? What information is the department looking to review of licensees? And, is it a template that we're working with other licensed entities across the United States. My collection agency is nationally licensed, and I must be one of the unicorn type of folks because I do it all myself. There's a lot of folks that will farm out for licensing of debt collection, licenses across the United States, and I do not. We've always done it ourselves, but that makes me intimately familiar with the processes that the other states have developed and established. So I'm just going to pass it around to whoever wants to go next, but those are my kind of key items for this period.
This is Robert Tavelli. I'll, if nobody's going to step up, I'll do it next, I guess. And can you hear me okay? Okay. My experience with licensing goes back to when I opened the company and we were dealing with the Bureau of Collection and Investigative Services. And there's a lot of information that was really structurally sound with the Bureau. The audits were one, and every 6 months we did something. And then of course the licensing was pretty straightforward, complaints. And those are the three primary things. But other than that, I'm really here today to kind of get a learning curve on what's going on within the DFPI and hopefully participate with a more intelligent level once I catch up. So I appreciate, again, being on the committee. I think I have a lot to share with the committee, but I think for right now, I'm going to sit back and listen a little bit today. So thank you.
I think maybe I was next in line. No. I'll go behind Robert. Cindy, I think said maybe our notes were the same notes. I'm really hoping that, from the last committee, we didn't have the opportunity to sit down and meet in person. And I'm hoping that we have a chance as a committee to meet in Sacramento. Zoom calls are great, but there's no substitute for face-to-face meeting. It was great to hear Emily's speaking about the upcoming regulations on the scope issues. I think that the department made massive strides in the previous round of scope regulations. There have been issues, obviously, that have come up, I think, since the proposed regulations and comment period closed on the scope regs that folks in the industry, I think, want to say, have their say on and have clarification on. And so I think industry's looking forward to seeing the next round of the scope regulations, and anything that the committee can do to offer comment on those regulations would be great in this forum.
I think I'm next here. Similar to Robert, I am playing a little bit of catch up to kind of figure out where the committee left off with the regulations. And I've reviewed, I think, the most recent updates that the committee worked on with relation to scope. I think that this is definitely, it's a good idea to meet in person and have in-person conversations, because I do think that it does go a lot further towards understanding. The only thing that, I'm really concerned with, I see there's been a lot of work in drilling down definitions and figuring out what is actually pertinent to collect, what kind of information is pertinent to collect. I'm looking forward to offering more insight into why that information is important to us, like where it seems that we might be overreaching for information, because there are, as Robert mentioned earlier, there are some bad actors that we're trying to establish patterns, and it is very helpful to have that information. Other than that, I think the updates look really good, and there's a couple areas that I want to think about tweaking, but otherwise good work in the last 2 years.
I can go next. I am really looking forward to also delving into the regulations and providing comment and feedback. I think that for me, because I've had a career that has been so multifaceted, I have worked on the financial institution side, I've worked in regulation, and I have worked for debt collectors. I think that diversity in application and making sure that it fits the needs of all the parties who would be licensed under the DFPI is a huge goal for me, to make sure that we're not just considering the traditional debt collector or the traditional financial institution, but those that serve minority populations and populations that we may not have considered before.
And I guess I'm looking forward to, really understanding the audit perspective of the licensing of everyone that's approved or, in the process of being approved, to making sure that in a sense it's streamlined. We're obtaining good information from all the parties and have a good understanding, and it is diverse in the information that we are obtaining from everybody, and just trying to get a good handle on, the direction of where we want to go as panelists in California.
Don, do you have anything else you want to add, or?
Sorry, I'm just getting used to Zoom. I'm usually still doing
Yes, that's me too.
I really agree with Cindy about meeting in person. I think that'll go a long way. My primary focus would be on the annual report and trying to set a standardized form, somewhat like the Massachusetts Division of Banks does with their debt collector annual report. So it's easier for the staff to review, so everyone's not handing in their own format. And then any input that I could give for licensure, I'd be happy to help.
Okay, well, since the annual report is a bit of a hot topic, I will give you a little bit of what we're working on. So we are focusing our first annual report on the legal requirements only. So the items that are listed in DCLA, that will be the only items that we're requesting for our first report. So just trying to say that we're not going to be expanding it beyond that. Part of what we're doing, once again, every time you implement something, it requires an IT aspect of it. So for this first year, we're going to have our focus just on the main items, but we're setting up our system so that you would enter your data through a portal, so it will all be automated, and that way, once we get the data in, it's easier for us to actually use that data because it will all come in electronically, and then we can run reports and do data analysis with that. So that's kind of where we are with the annual report for this year, as far as additional items, but that we might want or anything like that, that will come in future years. And for our examination, I'm not sure how many people here are familiar. If you are a multi-state licensee, you might be. We are going to be working with the NACARA group on their multi-state exams. We will be using the state examination system, which is SES. If you are involved in any of the NMLS conferences or something, you've probably heard about SES through that. It is a CSBS type system that will help us by doing those two things. We hope to be more consistent with our other state regulators for those that are multi-state, so that there's more consistency between the regulators in what we ask for, how we ask for it, and what we're looking at. So we do want to, if you can call it easing the burden, I know examinations are burdensome, but by being a little more consistent and working with our counterparts and trying to schedule, especially for some of the larger companies, trying to schedule at the same time, things like that. That's what our plan is, and we will be as transparent as we can on how our process will work. I will say, like our licensing and like everything that we're doing right now, it will be changing. So whatever we start with will change over time as we learn our lessons and as we work with industry and figure out kind of a little more on what we're doing. And as far as meeting in person, we can have that conversation, and maybe that's something I can get Ryan to pull you guys with. We did this time very much, or this round, want to have our out-of-state representation because so many of our licensees are out of state, but I've already heard one person from out of state indicate, that might be a good idea. So, because that is one thing with the committee, we would need to, make sure that it would work for everyone. So we're not opposed to doing it, but we were continuing on with the online versions because it allows everyone to attend. Okay, and I got to look for questions. Okay, I'm still not seeing any questions. So is there any more that, the committee at this point, things that you would like to discuss, specific questions? If I did not answer, if I was not specific enough in my answers, is there specific questions that I could help answer now?
I actually had a question about, if I can, Melinda, about the new telephone number voicemail system that was set up. Is that meant to replace the portal email, or are they meant to work in conjunction?
We still have our email, our inquiry box, and I guess I can explain. The voicemail goes to that same group of people. So we have a group of people that work on it. So they rotate through, which is part of the complexity of having a single phone number. Is one phone number wasn't not working for multiple people. So it is a voicemail system. What we are working on implementing is a phone system where you're calling that one number, but yet multiple people can actually answer it. So that system is supposed to be in play this year so that you can get a real live person when you call, as opposed to calling, leaving a voicemail and having one of our people call you back. And it really is set up just for preference, if you would prefer to talk to someone or if you would prefer to email. Either way, you're kind of getting the same group of people. However, you can also, if you wanted to talk to me specifically, I think most of you, well, if any of you wanted, any of the committee members need to talk to me specifically, Ryan can transfer you to me. But you can also request to talk to a certain person, even if any of the licensed applicants, if you can't, for some reason, you can't get a hold of the examiner who's working on your application. You can also go through either of those two ways to get someone to get a hold of you. If we are implementing, and I'm not sure if it's actually happened yet, but if it hasn't, it's happening very soon, like within the week, that when an examiner starts working on an application, that they send you an email or at least notify you of how to contact them directly so that you have a direct contact with who's working on your application.
And that's terrific. You answered my question, which was whether there was a preference, because certainly the email the email portal has been well staffed, and at least I'll say my sort of informal poll, people have been very pleased with the department's response and availability as far as going through that email portal. But as we were, I think, the committee was just saying, sometimes there's no substitute for a live person on the other line, let's say.
Yes. I just got a question through the group, through the Q&A. It says they're expecting a legislative update. Will there be anything discussed or summarized for the members of the public attending the meeting? So just to be clear, we currently don't have anything new. So we are in the process of working on our second rulemaking package. Our website has the most recent version. We'll be going out for comment soon. And if you are signed up, and you'll get a notification. If you haven't signed up, you can sign up through our website to be notified on the next time we go out for comment.
Charlie, go ahead. Or not. This is Suzanne. I'll just say very briefly. In this forum, we will typically, we'll see what happens, I guess, this fall. Certainly, if new legislation passes that impacts the debt collector program, we'll let you all know. We have a legislative team that tracks pending legislation that may have a policy or fiscal impact to this department. We don't have any significant updates to share at this time regarding any pending legislation. And this is a friendly reminder, our department, we are part of the Newsom administration. We typically are not going to be in a position to be able to comment on the merits of pending legislation. We almost never take positions on legislation. However, if anyone in this committee is working on pending legislation and wants to make sure that this group is aware of it, we are happy to give you the floor. So I don't know if anyone on the committee is tracking any legislation that they want to make sure this department or members of the public are aware of. Let us know.
We always have pending legislation that we're actively working on. But I can reserve that, as far as an update. If we want to incorporate that within, our committee calls, absolutely we'll have something prepared in advance to be able to share with the group. Because there's always at least 3 or 4.
I agree. I think that would be a great idea.
And if I am open, Mike, I do have just a couple follow-up questions. Was there any information that could be shared with the committee with regards to the consumer complaint portal that's managed currently by the DFPI? Do you have any statistics for us to share? I think that was part of one of our previous calls, and I guess we'll start that.
I do not have any statistics, but I'm sorry, I was stopped to write there. We are, I know I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yes, debt collector is one of the top complaint areas on our consumer complaint portal. There is some difficulty in getting some of that data, which we have been working on and that we continue to work on to appropriately categorize the data, because as you can imagine, when a complaint comes in about debt collector, it is usually naming the lender, the debt collector, and so having it categorized and so that we can have better data and better statistics is something we are focused on. That is another area in our implementation process that is requiring some IT initiatives. But I will add that for our next meeting to get you to provide some data on what the complaints are and what they're primarily about.
And I think we may have shared this in a previous meeting, but just for everyone's general awareness, across we have a department-wide project right now to do an IT upgrade on our complaint portal to make it more user-friendly to the consumer. Like we're going to be doing some user testing and then to make sure that on the back end, our back end tracking system is improved, also to fully reflect our expanded authorities, of course, because now pursuant to not just the Debt Collection Licensing Act, but also the California Consumer Financial Protection Law, our remit as the department has expanded. And so now we have jurisdiction over wider categories of consumer financial products and services. And so now we need to update our IT systems to reflect that. So there is a significant IT project that is most of the way through, but that is going to result in an upgraded consumer complaint portal. So that's a department-wide initiative. That's also part of the process and why we're still working behind the scenes to improve and develop our data dictionary, upgrade to better reflect our full remit now here at the department.
This is Robert. I had it's kind of a question as much as it is a statement. Used to be and still is that the FTC reports to Congress on complaints about our industry and collection industry, and we found that everything that was called in as a question or anything resulted in a statistical complaint against an industry. We also found that most of the complaints didn't really relate to the actual collection agency, but the party who turned over the debt, or they had questions, and they were, even if the person said, is interest allowed to be accrued? That was logged as a complaint. And I think it'd be interesting, and I like what I heard about, well, there's a phone process to call the Bureau or the DFPI, as well as email. So what would be nice is if there was some way of discerning that it's an actual complaint, or if it's just a question that's not logged in as a complaint against an industry. So we found that really skewed things when the FTC did that. They even literally admitted it to us that every call was logged as a complaint. Most of the time people don't know something, so they ask questions, or they even ask questions because they're frustrated with the collection agency. And rather than escalating to a complaint, there may be a way that questions can be answered rather than have it escalate to a complaint. Does that make sense? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I also want to make sure that folks are aware that, in addition to the regulations package that Emily was speaking about, we have a lot of regulations packages moving, but we are mandated by the California Consumer Financial Protection Law, or the CCFPL, to draft regulations clarifying procedures for handling consumer complaints and inquiries, right? And so that there's a pending rulemaking package on that to make a distinction between what is truly a complaint versus a general inquiry. So hopefully that will help provide better clarification. I can't speak to how I vaguely remember historically the FTC reports, but it's been a while since I've looked at them. But we are going to be clarifying the regulation complaint versus inquiry. And we are also going to make sure that there is an option that is also built into our IT systems as well. So hopefully that'll provide the kind of clarification about what's in, what's out on a complaint.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so Melinda, you mentioned in your update there that you said that you're going through the complaints and you're seeing consumers complain about, naming different entities with whom they're working. Can you shed some light as to what would be helpful to the department when a consumer is making a complaint, or for parties like us when we're helping consumers make complaint? What would help the department in terms of streamlining the information, and what's your preferred data?
We like as much information as possible because it gives us a better picture. And what we find, and I'm guessing not so much with your group because you understand it a little better, but sometimes consumers, they don't know where the problem really is. So was it the creditor? Was it the collector? Where did the problem actually occur? So they will, because right now you're clicking one thing. You only have one thing to say what's wrong. And they will sometimes say that it is the creditor when it was the debt collector, or it was the debt collector when it should have been the creditor. So so it's hard for them to know because you have to be a lot more intimate with the law to know which party, if there was any fault in which party that we need to go back to. So really just having more information and more documentation helps us fine tune who we need to send the complaint to. If there's multiple people listed, you know, so that we have, the more information we have, the better job we can do at pinpointing what the actual issue is and where that occurred, at what point of the process it occurred.
Well, it'd be nice also that if a person just has a concern, that they're able to work with the agency and have a resolve on something they're just frustrated with, rather than it becoming complaint oriented as well. Something that, how do I solve this problem with this agency? Well, you find sometimes the person hasn't even attempted to call the agency or communicate with the agency. I know in part of your questionnaire, it says, have you talked to somebody at the agency? And if they haven't, maybe that's where they need to be directed to at least try that before a complaint is accepted. Because many, I mean, it's one thing if it's an egregious complaint, but if it's just a frustration, sometimes that can be triaged and resolved quickly too. So.
Yes. Yeah, and some, I know when I I don't currently talk to too many consumers, but when I talk to consumers, a lot of what we can do as the intermediary is explain to them what the process is and explain to the law so they understand.
Sure.
What's their responsibility, what's ours, what's theirs, what's the licensee's responsibility.
Thank you.
And I thought
Yeah.
Cindy.
Yeah, I have a couple of follow-up questions. So Melinda, you were going through your state examination. Oops, I'm sorry. Phone's ringing. The state examination, there were some acronyms that were used, and I was wondering if you could just put those in the chat for those folks to have access to, because I don't know if they may not know what the acronyms stand for. I'm already getting questions regarding that piece of it. And then Emily, this one actually is directed for you as well. You had mentioned that there was the next stage of comments coming out. I was wondering if you had any kind of a time frame on that, and is it comments? Are we going to be available to comment, or is this final rule?
So timeline, I can't get more specific. I can just say we're in the last stages of review and of our internal review before we can release it. And it's going to be another pre-filing draft, which means it's not, it won't be filed with OAL yet. So there's a lot of room to make, big changes if we want to. And you'll see a draft, and then that'll be out for at least some amount of time before our next advisory committee meeting, so that in the meeting, just like we did with this draft, we can go through it as a group. You can, we can go piece by piece, and you can explain your concerns and your thoughts, and we can get really kind of detailed in that.
Thanks. So could you go through again, because I haven't looked at it. It's been a while since we picked up that comment period. Do you know specifically what comment period number that is, or could we share that with the committee so that they have that in front of them where we left off, and can, kind of point everybody in the right direction before the next draft comes out?
Yeah. Are you asking for like the rulemaking number?
Yeah, there's different numbers that are on the portal, and
yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have someone who's putting in the examination system acronym and stuff. So they'll be sticking that in the chat also. Does the committee have anything else they want to discuss? we still have more time, or we can, switch to our public comment and end earlier if we need to.
There is a question in the Q&A about do we think that DFPI is getting so many complaints about collections because they, I don't know if that's us or someone else, are actively soliciting complaints on places like Facebook. I will say that one of our department-wide goals is to raise awareness to the public about the fact that we exist and that we're here to help. So all I can say is that, we have been engaging in, statewide communications, campaigns because we have a relatively new name, DFPI, right? We used to be called the Department of Business Oversight. Now, post CCFPL, we have expanded authority, new name, clarified dual mission to protect consumers and foster responsible innovation. So we are out in public and partnering with community groups just to make sure that people across California are aware that we are here as the state's Consumer Financial Protection Agency and that we are a resource. So that's all I can really say about that. But we're not being shy about who we are and what we do here in California, because we want to make sure that everyone knows our charge here as the state's Consumer Financial Protection Agency.
I just want to speak up for a moment in response to the comment in the chat about getting consumers to reach out to the debt collectors first, and Robert's comment suggestion earlier. I just want to shed some light from the consumer point of view. It is not a rosy experience for many consumers to deal with debt. And many times when they are reaching out to organizations for help, it's really about understanding their rights and their responsibilities before they engage with a debt collector. It's also their right to not have to, speak with a debt collector if they choose not to. So just understand that from that point of view. Any kinds of requirement that the consumer speak with a debt collector first would be pretty impactful for many, many people.
Sure. No, that makes good sense. I think certain things are less inflammatory than others. And of course, that's why the DFPI is there, so that people have a intermediary. And I appreciate, the approach that DFPI is taking. They're looking at it as, is it really a complaint, or is it something that somebody's confused about or frustrated? My experience, and again, I say this, I don't like using dialers. I think some agencies have to based on their size, but we specialize in consumer with talking to them and resolving. And first thing we tell them, you don't owe a debt. We don't want you to pay a debt you don't owe. And that's why I got involved with the identity theft protocol. And I actually spoke with the Treasury too at one point, but it was about standardizing things that are routine that people are concerned about. They don't know something, so they complain. And maybe there's a place where there's commonly asked questions for consumers that they can get answers as well. But my experience is once I was able to talk to somebody, they realized they could talk to me. And I can understand that that's not with every agency. People get in these modes of collecting. I can say that as an industry, we are more of a customer service approach today than we ever were, especially with healthcare and trying to get people to understand their medical bills, because frankly, medical bills are confusing to me. So that's one of the reasons we'll get a complaint and they weren't aware that they had a way to resolve it. I do like the new form where somebody can file a dispute and resolve it, mark the box and you get them what they need to answer some questions. But I think between the DFPI's approach and attitude to working as an intermediary and their ability to say, hey, have you at least tried to talk to them? And if, and get some advice on how to talk to them even. Because I found that every time I've talked to somebody, matter of fact, we had one case where a person was so frustrated basically with the client, they got mad at us. And once we were able to talk to them, they actually were appreciative of being able to have us help them. So if we can create that kind of spirit with consumers, that should be a part of it as well. So I agree with you though. I've seen it on both sides, and for 43 years, I think now, and I've seen it when 1978, when I got involved, all the bad things were going on. And that's why the new rules under Rosenthal and all that were created. So I totally respect that, what you're saying. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and our department does have, in case our consumers listening, we do have a Ask DFPI phone number. So it is more of a question. We have a separate to file a complaint. And if you call the Ask DFPI, you might, they can answer a question, or they can also after talking to you, if they feel it's a complaint, they will send you to that group. And I know I keep saying this, we're in the middle of doing all these IT upgrades, but we are, because it's new programs and there's just a lot of things we have to work out. But we do have a consumer section of our website. Our whole website is being revamped to make it easier to use and to find, so that consumers can actually find and access the information that will help them determine what their rights are, what their options are, and what kind of help that can be given to them. So we currently have some of that on our website. It's just not always easy to navigate to. So we're really working on doing that. This will also mean an upgrade on the licensing side. So we did just a couple weeks ago revamp our Q&A. So not that we changed a lot of details or a lot of the questions, however, we organized them better. Because originally we were just adding as we felt the need to add more questions and answers. We did that, but they were just as they came up and numbered in that way. Now they're grouped by topic. So if you have questions about the regs or you need to find a link or something like that, there's a section about the law. There's a section about licensing part. So it's easier, we hope, for people to actually find the information they need on our website. And not that we mind answering the inquiries, especially now, they're now down to a very reasonable limit, and we now can answer them usually, same day or within 24 hours, depending on what, time of day they come in. But I know some people just want to be able to go look it up. And so hopefully we are accommodating everyone's method of getting information. Okay. Is there anything?
I have one more question.
Oh, yes.
I've been trying to take some notes, Melinda, and there was something that you had mentioned in earlier regarding the first annual report. You had indicated that was going to be something due for the 24-25 period. So is that something that like a report that, you mentioned the portal and doing the login for the portal. So I'm wondering if this is going to look like for industry. Is there going to be, once we get through the comment period, at the end of this year, come December when NMLS renewals are coming up, will this be a form that we submit through NMLS if the portal is not ready? And you mentioned something else, that the first year that you were going to be looking at certain data sets. Could you just repeat what you went through there with that process?
Sure. So there's two things that I mentioned. One is the actual annual report. So the annual report will be as of 12/31/23. So meaning it would be the data for 2023, if it's data that's throughout the year, or it will be as of that date if it's a point in time question. The actual report is due in March, and it will be done through our portal system within our system. So we will, prior to the end of the year, send out a notification to all of our licensees, and at that point probably our pending applicants, because they should all be licensed prior to the end of the year, or at least that's what we're shooting. How to sign up for the portal, what information, and the information, and I don't know if it got into the chat, the actual law section. It is required in the Debt Collection Licensing Act that we do an annual report. It asks for 5, I think there's 5 items, A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, I think it's A through E. And that is what we will be asking for. So that is, Herb says it's in, it's in our Q&A. He did put the answer in there. So the actual section of law, so those items, that is what we will be asking for. I don't have them in front of me to read off, but it is, we are limiting it to, we are not expanding, we are not putting any additional requirements into regs at this time. It is limited to the section that is in our Q&A, those items. There are some of them that are debt buyer specific, some of them that are, third party collector specific. And those we will, identify that if you are a debt buyer, you have to answer this question. So we are trying to go through and make the form as user-friendly as possible. The forms, when we put them in our portal, you can download a copy of, so that you can look at them. They then, after they're due, we then do produce a report that is all consolidated, not individual debt buyers, but consolidated for the industry, that is available later in the year. It takes us a few months to accumulate everything. So that is the actual annual report process. Now that information is one of the things in there that we ask for, is the data that allows us to do our assessment, which is why our assessment is not until the following, and that's where you get into the fiscal year. So that's that 2024, 2025 year. That's a fiscal year. Assessments are based on fiscal year. Annual reports are based on calendar year. So the assessment will be done. I think invoices are required to go out in September, but not due until the end of the year. And the invoices and the assessment is done through NMLS. The actual annual report, NMLS does not have that functionality. So it is done through our portal so that it is all automated, so that I am not having to then key in information that you provide me. If for some reason there is a issue with our IT system, then we will send them out. It will be in a fillable PDF, and then I have to have someone key in the information into the database, but really hoping that doesn't happen.
Thank you so much. So, just from industry standpoint, I think that there is still some concern, if you will, over the process, simply because this is the first time since the 70s that debt collection agencies have been licensed. And the minute that you say assessment, and pro rata portion, I think that from small business owners in particular, that is a grave concern, because we just don't know what that liability is going to look like. So if, that is absolutely something I would like to, try and get some more insight from for our members that are out there and licensees, because, obviously the state of California right now working in a deficit capacity, I think is a huge concern for small business owners here in the state. What kind of burden is that going to cause upon licensees? So if there's anything that you're able to share in that respect, obviously business owners are going to get a bill come September next year, and we need to know what that looks like.
Yes, I don't currently have any more information, but as the process unfolds, yes, that is something that we can continue having a discussion. And as we do our meetings, that yes, that will always be part of my update if there are additional things that we know. And as far as the assessment and that, it's very hard for us to give any indication until we actually have collected the data, and that we have not done yet. Scott?
Yeah, very, very briefly, just to add on to that, the timing with respect to the ultimate enactment of the regulations is going to be important too, because some applicants, either in whole or in part, may have parts of their enterprises or themselves may not have some activity that is licensable conduct, depending on what the regulations ultimately say. So I know that there are some who are concerned that, especially if they're going through, the data collection and some of the burden that's required through the application process, or through compiling the data that needs to be submitted as part of this report, when they might be an entity whose conduct is not licensed, a license is not necessary. There's some concern about how that timing is going to play out with respect to when the regulations ultimately get finalized.
I might add that if, like Scott is saying, that certain parts of your business might not be regulatory by the DFPI, and that portion of your business that is certainly has an assessment, but also just knowing in advance how it's going to roll out or what information you're going to be needing is so important, because just as the DFPI has had a hard time rolling a lot out, once you give us this, we have to go through processes within our own organizations to prepare for standardization and reporting. So, it just makes it a little easier for us the more we can know ahead of time as agencies.
Yes, and that is why we are limiting to what is already in the law. I know not everything in there has been defined, particularly the terminology around the assessment, that net proceeds is the, let's call it the elephant in the room, because we don't know what it is yet. So that is why it's very important to in the reg package and having your input, and that was something that we spent a lot of time in the last term talking to the committee members and trying to get more feedback on what that term should look like. So you will find in the next comment period and the next version that, based on feedback we got, we have made adjustments to that term again, and we look forward to getting additional feedback, because it is quite difficult to come up with a term that is, or a definition that is applicable to every business type. And I think that's been our biggest challenge, is the diversity within the industry and coming up with something that would be applicable to every licensee.
And we are aiming, as always, to over communicate when something's coming up, right? So that's why it's very important. Reach out to Ryan if you need help navigating our website to figure out how to sign up. But we'll do email blasts on all of this, all right? So we're not hiding the ball here about what's coming. So as the process moves forward, whether it's a revised regulatory text or a heads up about when there is going to be something to do, an action item related to filing an annual report or preparing for assessments, we will be in active, proactive communication with the licensee community to make sure that you have a sense for what's coming. We'll give you as much advance notice as we can on these things, because we want to make sure that we're facilitating, the operational side of this for you all as well. We're keenly aware of that. This is a big, complex statute to implement. So we're kind of all in this together. We appreciate your patience and your candor, because we want to make this roll out as smoothly as we possibly can on our end.
Okay. If we have no more comments, then we can open it up for any public comments. If we could get that slide up next. There we go. So if we do have during the public comment period if you're in the Zoom app, then you can raise your hand. You can also use the chat function if you want to just leave a comment or to ask a question. If you're dialing in, if you could please email your question to Ryan, and even if we can't get back to you now, we can get back to you later. And we'll get through as many as possible in the next 10 minutes.
And I see a question in the Q&A about when people are submitting comments, is the DFPI looking for language that can be used to replace what DFPI has listed in their proposed rules? Certainly, on any regulation package that we've filed for public comment, we welcome public comments ranging in the, you can do thumbs up, thumbs down. If you want to recommend, markup language, language that you would recommend is better, that's certainly acceptable commentary. And that's true whenever we're putting out language for public comment. We welcome any level of analysis, and we do welcome suggested language changes. It gives us something to review and work with. So that's certainly an appropriate type of content to submit to us in response to a reg package. I hope that's helpful.
I'm currently not seeing any hands raised during
Okay,
public comment.
thank you. I was trying to figure out on my screen. I have so many things now. Okay. So it doesn't look like we have any additional comments.
For the dial-in callers, if you do need to submit a comment, you can send an email to me at ryan.rodriguez@dfpi.ca.gov. We'll put that in the comments as well.
I see a hand up, Allison Schlick.
Allison, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so you can make your comment.
Good morning. I was wondering about the different systems and portals. Will the DFPI and or the committee be creating maybe a helpful video as to how to use the portal for licensees so that they can kind of train up?
Am I in? Guess I am unmuted. Sorry. I don't think we have any video like that. What will happen is my staff that is responsible for answering our voicemails and our inquiries, they will get trained up, and if you have issues, that's who you would contact them, and they would help walk you through. So what happens is we will send out an email to all of our licensees, applicants. We will send out an email with instructions on how to get your account set up, and that process is that it is fairly intuitive. I'm not saying it always works, but it's fairly intuitive as far as the information you have to put in, because it's very nominal what you actually have to do to put into your account to get an account. And then the same thing with the actual annual report. We'll first send out the email about how to get the account and announcing the fact that we're going to do this and that it's going to be used for the annual report. And then we'll send out an email for the annual report prior to it when you can have access. And then we'll also send out a reminder so that, because you'll have, I think it's 105 days. It's not quite 3 months. I have to do, well, I don't want to do math in my head right now. You'll have ample time from when we open the portal to say, yes, you can get in, to when your actual numbers have to be in. And you can get help during that time, during that process, to make sure that you don't actually miss the deadline.
Yeah, I guess I was just concerned because like the charity registry at the Department of Justice and various other reports that are due through the, to the state, they have little videos kind of just showing how to do it. Just kind of more like a screen share of an example, basic report, with basic, fake information, but just kind of walking potential people through what they're going to have to do.
Okay. I'll take that as an idea and see if that is something that we can do.
Melinda, you're saying that you have people learning it in your department now? Is that what I'm hearing?
Our department, it is something that's been used in our department for a very long time in other programs, but my staff, some of them are new to the department. So the people who are actually going to be answering the inquiries will learn how to use it basically from both endpoints. So from the consumer or from the licensee input to the output on our end. To a certain extent, they've kind of done that with NMLS. They've learned what happens on your end of it so that they can help troubleshoot when there's problems.
Well, I like what Allison said, and I found that we do web portal training as well. And what I found is that as they're going through it, they'll see the problems they have, and if they could kind of make a list of those are going to be the problems that agencies are going to have as well.
Right.
So it's just a quick and easy way. So yeah, thanks.
Sure. Callie, you have a question or comment?
Actually, just a comment. There was a question of who on this advisory committee is from a debt buying company. I do not currently work for a debt buyer. However, I was an attorney for Portfolio Recovery Associates for several years. So I have worked for debt buyers in the past.
Thank you. And Angela?
It's the same for myself. I've worked for a debt buyer in the past. I worked for Jefferson Capital Systems for over 10 years in different compliance roles and operational roles.
Thank you.
And this is Scott. I think maybe it was a poll, I think, of members of the committee. I have done some work for debt buyers in the debt buying industry, but it is not the majority of my practice.
Okay, I think we have gone through all of our comments and questions now. Ryan, unless you're seeing something that I am missing.
I believe we're good to go.
Okay, so just as we're wrapping up, I want all the participants to know that once we sign off, the window will actually stay open for an additional 10 minutes. It will have our email address and other information on that slide. She's putting the slide up. So this slide will stay up longer. So if you need to take down any of this information, you can. So I would like to thank all the committee members for their time and all of your thoughtful insight. And I was very happy to meet all of you and looking forward to getting to know you better and working with you over these next 2 years. So thank you also to the public for attending and asking questions and providing feedback. We do take that very seriously. If you have any additional thoughts, you can email us at that inquiry box that is listed on the slide right now. And I think it was also in the chat. I saw it on the chat at some point, so you might have to scroll up to find it, or maybe Ryan, if you could just stick it back in the chat again so that it's at the most recent part of the feed.
I will do so.
Are welcome to email us and provide any additional feedback. And we will be contacting you about our next advisory committee meeting. It will likely then, as Emily has said, coincide with the next comment period. So for the committee members, I'm sure most of you already signed up for our notification, so you might get it twice, because we will send the notification for comment and all that to you directly at the emails that we have for you that Ryan has, but you will also get them either directly or through your companies, probably if you're on our stakeholder email list also. So thank you everyone for attending, and we will talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda.
Everybody.
Everybody have a great day.
Bye.